you. Those 3 words can hold a lot of weight. For every person, this is a very personal moment and decision, but there are some common ideals behind the words. We use the term love to refer to a relationship-specific trait, an attitude held by a person toward a particular other person involving predispositions to think, feel, and behave in certain ways towards that other person. We associate our I love yous with true love, happiness, and a sense of together foreverness. So why is it so hard for people in new relationships to say I love you? That's the question that I set out to answer in this film.
Saying I love you in a relationship, I think, means, I don't know, just kind of like taking that person for everything that they are.
Researchers found that people's attitudes about love were connected to several outcome variables, including mental health, self-esteem, relationship quality, and relationship satisfaction.
Saying I love you in a romantic relationship really, for me, meant a lot. It was very permanent in a way. It just, like I said, was a whole nother level of, for me, commitment. I wasn't one that liked to just date one person, so when I finally did and realized that I loved someone, that meant a lot.
When I say I love you to somebody in a romantic context, to me it's kind of, I guess, my way of letting someone know that I'm there for them and I hope they're there for me too. Just kind of like an extra step saying I care about you a lot.
What does it mean to say I love you? I think it just means you're there, you're in it for the long haul. You're willing to make that choice.
According to Jonathan Bennett, owner of Double Trust Dating, saying I love you can seriously complicate a relationship. However, if it's never said, then the relationship may never get to progress.
Well, I think when you say I love you in a relationship, I think it definitely makes it a little bit more serious. I think the intention of something lasting longer than, I don't know, a short amount of time is kind of created there.
Saying I love you in a relationship can kind of bring the relationship to a whole nother level, right? It, like, before it might be more casual, you might not know where it's exactly going. Maybe you're seeing other people, but when you get to that point, it's very serious. It means, for me anyway, it means that that's the only person you're dating, and that's the person you want to hang out with all the time or most of the time, and that you're opening yourself up to vulnerability, to being hurt, to being, really sad if it ends, but also really hopeful.
Well, it put it on a different plane because it meant we were serious about each other.
According to research from Kate Lieber's article for Refinery, 16% of people refuse to say it first and would rather wait for their partner to say I love you first, even if they themselves already felt it. Gender differences can also contribute to how easy or hard it is for someone to say I love you. For example, women tend to be more expressive in relationships, and are expected by others to be more expressive, particularly in instances of romantic love.
I think for women it's hard because I think it kind of goes with how the men are the ones that would be asking your hand in marriage and doing that type of thing. And chivalry, I think that lends a hand to it, and I think that's why women feel that they don't want to be the first one to say it, but I think we're getting past that, and I don't think there's less of a stigma now, but I think there still is that internalized pressure that people feel.
Due to stereotypes about masculinity, men may find it harder to say I love you and harder to express love in general.
Probably, in my opinion, or my experience when I was younger, and maybe, I was more committed to traditional roles in relationships, I definitely probably would have said it first, thinking that a man might be more hesitant to do so because of their pride or something like that, which seems silly now when I think about it, but I feel like that's probably how I thought about it in the past. And I think I probably thought it was important to say it first just to help them along the way. But in retrospect, I don't really think it matters who says it first.
In a study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, it was reported that it is usually men that confess love first. However, in a study from the College Student Journal, men were significantly more likely than females to report saying I love you sooner in the relationship because of a sexual agenda.
Well, saying I love you to someone is being vulnerable. So whoever says it first, it's going to be, you're putting yourself in that position to be vulnerable because you don't know if they're going to say it back. And also, it is a serious part of a relationship. So
Intimate relationships like love and friendship have patterns of vulnerability. We might say that being vulnerable is fundamentally a matter of being exposed to potential harm.
Also, I'm not great with being vulnerable, and so that brings me to a point of where I'm very vulnerable, and the possibility of heartbreak is there, and that's not something I take lightly. So saying that is a pretty important thing in my opinion.
I'd also been hurt before, and one time I'd been hurt very, very badly, and I realized how vulnerable love makes somebody. And so I was very cautious about saying I love you again because I'd been hurt.
Seemingly, the socially accepted time to say I love you is from 3 to 6 months, though that is not always the case for everybody.
The first time I said I love you to my husband, I don't remember the exact time, but it must have been 3 months or so into the relationship.
We were together about 2 months before I said I love you.
I think my husband and I were together maybe 4 or 5 months before we said I love you. I don't know if there was a point in waiting to say I love you, except both of us had been in long-term relationships. I'd been engaged before, broke that off. So I think I just wanted to probably know my feelings really well before I put that out there.
We just hadn't said that before. At one point I remember I was close to saying it and I got a little scared and I just said, I really dig you. But once I accepted that I felt like he was there to stay, then I just went for it. But I was nervous.
Lindsay Dodgson pointed out in an article for Insider magazine that being upfront and honest about everything, including your emotions, should be the bare minimum in a relationship. But modern dating culture escalates our emotional hang-ups with all the mind games and rules that we stick to.
The first time I told someone that I loved them, I was extremely nervous. I guess I had never said it to anybody before, so and I guess like I said, it's such a powerful word in my head, and so I think saying it for the first time, it was just having it been something that I'd never done before, combined with how much I did love this person. It was hard.
One study reported that participants who said that they were in love also had higher scores for anxiety. The nerves that come hand in hand with feeling love and saying I love you are common.
Well, I think it's difficult to say I love you in a new relationship because maybe you're not ready to go to the next level, to make that commitment to someone. And of course, it makes you really vulnerable, and depending on how strong your confidence is in the other person's feelings, it puts you in a precarious position where they might not reciprocate, or even if they're feeling it and they don't say it right then, it might make you feel a little awkward. So I think definitely that awkwardness in a new relationship is something that holds a lot of people back. Like, if they did say it, what is the other person going to say? And how would that feel? And if you say it and they don't say it back, then what do you say? So I think that hesitancy to be vulnerable and hesitancy to be in a possibly awkward situation would probably hold people back and make it a little bit difficult to go over that hurdle.
It's hard because it raises the level of the relationship. It puts that relationship on a different plane. It makes that relationship more important in both their lives. Until you say those words, that relationship is more casual.
These days, it's more than the increasing level of seriousness that makes it difficult for people to say I love you. According to an article from Time by Belinda Luscombe, psychologists have observed that modern relationships do not follow the map that used to help people guide their way to commitment. Relationships today have evolved.
I think there's a lot more emotional freedom with young people today. The idea of living with someone or having a relationship with someone first, but not saying I love you seems to be okay. And then saying I love you is kind of the commitment afterward.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really hard for people to say I love you if they aren't comfortable communicating a lot of things.
I think it's difficult for people to say I love you in new relationships because I think, like, growing up, I think we have this idea, like, the word carries so much weight to it. It's just kind of, you don't say it too often, and it seems like something that's so definite and, like, powerful that you don't want to overuse it.
I love you can mean something different to everyone who says it. Saying I love you is not always easy, especially when it's the first time. As people fall in love, quote, we are often afraid to speak openly about our feelings. Yet, if we stay silent, the thoughts about what could have been can haunt us for a long time. End quote. However, if we talk openly about our feelings and say I love you in those relationships when the time is right, no matter how difficult, it can make all the difference.